Let's face it, every NFL season we have new playoff teams. Every NFL season we think that the same teams that made it last year are going to easily make it this year, but that's simply not the case. Every season we have a few teams that are replaced as playoff teams. And in this video, that is what I'm going to predict. I'm going to predict the teams that will be replaced in the playoffs in 2023. These are the NFL teams that made the playoffs in 2022, but will not make it in 2023. Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe for more NFL content just like this. Also, let me know in the comment section below which NFL teams that made it last year will not make the playoffs this year. Let's begin with the wide open NFC because there's so many teams that could make it because this conference, quite frankly, is not very good, which leaves the opportunity for a team to rise up and snatch the brass ring. Now, the first team that's obvious, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm sorry, Bucs fans. I love you. You know that. You're not going to make the playoffs. Probably not. And the reason for that is Tom Brady. He's gone. He's retired. And I would expect the Bucs to not win the division. They barely won the division last year. And I think there is some faith and hope that the Bucs can be more organized from a coaching standpoint this year. That Todd Bowles in his second year as the Bucs head coach can be better. That the offensive coordinator situation has gotten better. And in some instances, maybe even the roster is better around the quarterback. But going from the greatest quarterback of all time to Baker Mayfield, who I'm not even sure is a starting quarterback, is a big difference. There's a lot of questions about this roster. This was not a very good team last year that had to win numerous games at the buzzer. Despite me liking what they did with this offseason, retaining talent like Jamel Dean and Levante David, picking up Kalijah Kancey in the draft, picking up Cody Mock in the draft, also Greg Gaines in free agency, still offering Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at wide receiver, Tristan Wirfs at tackle. There's still plenty of talent, and even Shaq Barrett is coming back. I don't underestimate the talent. I underestimate the quarterback and the coach situation. I have huge questions about the two biggest areas that your football team must be great at to succeed in the 2023 NFL. So that's why I believe the Bucs will miss the playoffs in 2023. The second NFC team that I believe will miss the playoffs this year is the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings very well could make the playoffs again this year, and I might end up picking the Vikings at the end of the day to make it. And if I were going to pick the Vikings to make the playoffs, it would be because of Kirk Cousins. I know that sounds weird, but when you really think about the NFC, Kirk Cousins might be the second best quarterback in this conference, and I don't think that's crazy. Kirk Cousins was really good last year and pulled out a ton of victories in the fourth quarter, which very well might be the difference between a couple of these NFC teams on whether they make it or don't make the playoffs. Kirk Cousins was spectacular in the fourth quarter last year, and so was Justin Jefferson. And they carried this team to the playoffs. The Vikings defense, though, still leaves a lot to be desired from a roster standpoint, especially in the secondary. Harrison Smith is getting older back there, and they really have no corners that I trust. Byron Murphy comes from Arizona, but he's new to this scheme, to this team. The front seven, they added Marcus Davenport. Danielle Hunter's there, but they lost Dalvin Tomlinson. The linebacker position lost Eric Kendricks. I'm just not sure they have enough talent on that side of the ball, even if I feel like Brian Flores is going to elevate the talent that exists. Because last year, their defense was a disaster. It was a horror show. It was bad. It was the worst defense I witnessed last season. But where I really believe the Vikings just won't be as good is luck. Like, I don't see them winning all of these one-score games to the point where they're undefeated in one-score games. They win like 8 games in the fourth quarter on the last drive of the game. Justin Jefferson's mossing people with one hand and Josh Allen's fumbling the ball in his own end zone or whatever. Like, they're not going to win these miracle games all the way throughout the season the way they did last year to make the playoffs. Still believe they have a lot of talent on offense. I like Kevin O'Connell. I just think they're going to come back down to earth this season and another team will take their spot in 2023. And the final NFC team that made the playoffs last year that I don't believe will make it this year is the New York G-Men. Despite me really liking this incarnation of the Giants, I just believe that their luck will not be the same in 2023. You may even argue that this roster is more talented than the one that made the playoffs last year. But it doesn't always work out that way. Just because you win 9 games last season doesn't mean if you add more talent, you'll all of a sudden win 11 this year. Everyone thinks that's what happens, but that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes a team that won a Super Bowl is actually worse than the team that lost in the divisional round the year previous. Take it from a Patriots fan. Or a team that went 16-0 didn't win the Super Bowl, but a team that went 11-5 did. You know what I'm saying? So the New York Giants, I think, are a classic case of they rode this momentum last season. They were spectacular in the clutch in the fourth quarter. I think their coaching has a lot to do with that. They're situationally prepared to win games. Daniel Jones played really well last year, but I feel like the Giants overall just don't have that otherworldly talent for me to suggest that they're automatically going to make the playoffs again. The Cowboys and the Eagles are more talented teams in their own division. I think you could argue that Washington is just as talented as the New York Giants from top to bottom, offense, defense. I'd argue their coaching staff is better in New York. But this was a team that was very fortunate and very lucky last year. Not only were they spectacular in one-score games, but they also were great in terms of turnover percentage, fumble luck, things that just don't carry over from season to season. I believe the Giants will probably lose a couple of games this year versus a tougher schedule that maybe they were able to win at the end this past season. I still could see them making it. I just think it's going to be a lot more difficult in 2023 than how they caught everybody by surprise in 2022. Now let's flip to the AFC, where there's 2 teams that I believe will miss the playoffs that made it last year. There could be more based on the talent and the depth of this conference. There could be way more than 2, but it's all dependent on injuries and a few other factors that I just can't really sit here and predict. With the Los Angeles Chargers, I can predict the past. The past is a good precedent for the future. And I believe that this Brandon Staley coach team is going to make mistakes. They are going to get in their own way, and they are going to lose games that they should win. It's that simple. They are talented enough to make the playoffs. But I don't think that their talent is so overwhelming that they can overcome inadequate coaching. I really do not believe that Brandon Staley should be a head coach right now in the NFL with some of the decisions he makes within the game, some of the game winning and losing decisions he makes in the fourth quarter, the way that his defense consistently cannot stop the run, allowing other teams to possess the football. And this team just gets injured a lot. They get injured on the offensive line. Their receivers are injury prone. Their defense is injury prone. I worry about their depth in terms of their pass rush, because when they have their pass rush, they're a different team. But when they don't, they're a different team. I worry about guys like Derwin James and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams consistently staying healthy. Yes, they have Justin Herbert, and a Justin Herbert team could make the playoffs every season. But I'm not going to be willing to commit that Justin Herbert's just going to carry this team to the playoffs on his back. This team is not organized enough, not consistent enough, and that's why I have no faith in this franchise to put together 2 consecutive seasons of playoff football. I think they probably just miss out, but they miss out nonetheless. The second team is the biggest question. But we know that there will be 2 or more teams from the AFC last year that don't make it this year. And I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins. The reason I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins is a couple reasons. I like what they did in terms of adding Jalen Ramsey and specifically Vic Fangio to that defense. I also feel like they got a steal from Tennessee at linebacker in David Long. And they did make some nice roster changes. But there's a couple things that bug me. First, the AFC East. The AFC East is loaded from top to bottom. And the AFC East is going to be a war every single game. All 4 of those teams could make the playoffs. There is no doubt about it. The Patriots have better coaching. The Jets have a better quarterback. The Bills are the Bills. That's going to make that division better, top to bottom. And it was already arguably the best last year. And then you have the Tua situation. A guy at quarterback who you're counting on to play all 17 games. You're going to have to play all 17 games if you're Tua to make the playoffs because of the division. If you slip up one time, the Jets or the Patriots or the Bills are going to jump you. I believe if Tua does not play all these games, they're not going to make the playoffs because this division is too good. This schedule is too strong. It's just too much to overcome, in my opinion. And then we have other kind of underlying factors that I believe could also play into them missing the playoffs. I question Tyreek Hill a little bit. I just have this funny feeling. Tyreek Hill, correct me if I'm wrong, did speak about retirement coming up. And he's getting to that age where a guy as explosive and as fast as him could maybe see a couple of injuries. I don't want to put that on him. I love Tyreek Hill. Everyone knows that. I just feel like at this stage of his career, those things are going to pop up. And then you talk about the offensive line, which is still not my favorite, especially the right side of the offensive line at right tackle, Austin Jackson. I don't think their running game is especially consistent. And then the defense, yes, has a great group of talent, but even last year, they didn't seem to put it together, whether that was coaching, injuries, or whatever. Just feels like they're a little bit overrated in terms of that talent pool. So I have my questions about everything when it comes to Miami. There's certainly a team that you could look at on one side and say this might be the most talented team in their division. But on the other side, you could say, well, there's the Tua thing. There's the Mike McDaniel in his second year. Will defensive coordinators catch up to what they were doing? There's a lot of different factors in play to why I believe Miami could potentially miss the playoffs in 2023. Let me know the teams that you believe will miss the playoffs, that made the playoffs in 2022. It's not an easy discussion to have. It's not an easy exercise, but those are my best guesses to which teams I believe could miss the playoffs in 2023. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Gronk spike the like button, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.